10,900 meters. That is how far down the Challenger Deep sits at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the lowest point in every ocean on Earth. If you stacked Mount Everest into that trench, the peak would still sit more than a mile underwater. Fewer than 30 people have ever traveled that far down, which is fewer than the number of humans who have walked on the moon. At that depth, the water pressure is strong enough to crush a submarine like a soda can over 1,000 times the pressure you feel standing at sea level. For most of human history, we assumed nothing large could survive down there, that the crushing weight of the ocean made deep trenches empty, lifeless places. Then, in 1997, listening equipment picked up a sound so massive that scientists could not explain where it came from. And what they found afterward only raised more questions. This is the story of what may be hiding in the deepest place on the planet, and why some researchers think we are still not asking the right questions about it. In the summer of 1997, hydrophones placed across thousands of miles of the Pacific Ocean by the United States government's Ocean and Weather Agency, NOAA, picked up a sound unlike anything on record. It was loud enough to be detected by sensors more than 3,000 miles apart, which meant whatever made it had to be enormous, far louder than any whale call ever documented. Scientists nicknamed it the bloop. At first, some researchers wondered if a living creature far larger than any known whale had made the sound, since no known animal on Earth was thought capable of producing a noise that powerful and that low in frequency. The idea spread fast because nothing in the official animal record could explain a sound big enough to travel that far through open ocean. News outlets ran with theories ranging from undiscovered giant squid to entirely new species of whale. It took years of careful study and access to far more listening stations before NOAA scientists linked the sound to a natural event, a massive ice quake breaking apart deep in the Southern Ocean, thousands of miles from the trench itself. Case closed, according to most textbooks and most official reports. But the bloop was not the only strange signal picked up near deep ocean trenches over the years, and not every one of those signals has ever been fully explained the way the bloop eventually was. While the bloop investigation was unfolding, marine biologists studying sperm whales noticed something else that did not add up. Sperm whales are some of the deepest diving animals on Earth, capable of reaching over 1,000 meters to hunt in total darkness, holding their breath for well over an hour at a time. Many of these whales surface with round scars covering their skin, left behind by the suckers of giant squid they fought and ate during those long, dark hunts. That part is well documented and widely accepted by marine biologists. Giant squid can grow over 12 meters long, nearly 40 feet, with suckers ringed by small hooks that leave circular marks across a whale's skin. But some whales have been found with scars far larger than any confirmed giant squid could produce, sometimes twice the width of a normal sucker mark, spaced in patterns that do not match any cataloged squid species. If the scars came from squid, those squid would have to be significantly bigger than anything ever caught, filmed, or washed ashore anywhere in the world. Researchers are split on what this means. Some believe the whales are simply fighting older, larger individual squid that we have never managed to capture or film alive, arguing that a handful of exceptionally old giant squid could grow well beyond typical size. Others think the scars point to a species science has not identified yet, something living far below the depths where research vessels normally operate. In pockets of the ocean, we rarely reach with cameras or nets. There is no captured specimen to settle the debate either way, and without a body, the argument stays open. What almost everyone agrees on is this: whatever left those marks was strong enough to fight a sperm whale, one of the largest predators on Earth, and survive the encounter long enough to leave a healed wound behind. That is not a small, harmless animal. That is something built to win fights in total darkness, under crushing pressure, far from any human eye, in a part of the ocean we have barely begun to explore. And the scars are not the only physical clue that something unaccounted for is moving through the deep. Long before anyone worried about giant squid scars, another deep ocean predator proved just how much we underestimate the dark. In 1976, a United States Navy research ship accidentally caught an animal that had never been seen by science before, tangled in an anchor near Hawaii. It was a 16-foot shark with a huge, soft mouth built for filtering food in deep water, completely unlike any shark on record at the time. Scientists named it the megamouth shark. For nearly 200 years, researchers had studied ocean life across the globe without ever noticing an entire species of large shark quietly living in the deep, moving up toward the surface, at night to feed and sinking back into darkness by day. Fewer than 100 megamouth sharks have been documented since that first discovery. Even though they clearly are not rare in absolute numbers around the world, they are simply rare for humans to encounter because they spend almost their entire lives far below where people look. If a 16-foot predator with a mouth wide enough to swallow a person whole can stay hidden from science for nearly 2 centuries, It raises an uncomfortable question about what else might be down there that we have simply never crossed paths with, especially in a trench nearly 7 miles deep that we have barely mapped at all. That question becomes even harder to dismiss once you look at damage found on other deep-sea animals pulled up from trench waters. Fishing crews and researchers working near deep trenches have occasionally hauled up sleeper sharks, a slow-moving deep-water species built to survive in near-freezing, crushing conditions, covered in large, crescent-shaped bite marks that do not match any known predator in that environment. Sleeper sharks are already large animals themselves, some growing over 20 feet long and weighing over a ton, which means whatever bit them was capable of taking a serious bite out of an animal that size and letting it swim away alive. Cookie cutter sharks are a well-known and well-studied species that leave small round bite marks on whales, dolphins, and other sharks, but these particular wounds found on sleeper. Sharks are far too large and oddly shaped to match a cookie cutter's small circular bite. Marine biologists have suggested a few possibilities to explain the damage. It could be an unusually large individual of a known species behaving in ways we have not documented before. It could be a species that has not been formally studied or named yet, quietly living in trench waters. Most research boats never visit. Or it could be repeated attacks from multiple animals working together in the dark, something we rarely get to observe firsthand in the deep ocean. None of these explanations have been confirmed by researchers, and the wounds keep turning up on different animals in different parts of the deep Pacific over the years, which suggests to some scientists that this is not a rare one-time event, but an ongoing pattern we are only catching small glimpses of. If you have made it this far into the story, you already understand why this topic keeps pulling people back in, wondering what else might be waiting in the dark, and if that kind of curiosity is something you enjoy. Sticking around and subscribing helps this channel keep digging into stories exactly like this one every week. While researchers debate what is leaving these scars and bites, the trench itself has been quietly changing in ways that could be pushing deep-sea animals to compete harder for space and food than ever before. Ocean currents that carry oxygen and nutrients down into the Hadal Zone, the deepest layer of the ocean where trenches like Mariana sit, are shifting as surface waters warm around the world. Even small changes in temperature and oxygen levels at the surface can alter how much food eventually sinks down to feed life in the deep, since almost everything down there depends on scraps drifting down from far above. Less food sinking down could mean deep-sea predators are forced into smaller hunting grounds, increasing the odds of violent encounters between animals that would normally avoid each other entirely in a vast, empty trench. It could also mean something large and adaptable has more reason to expand into new territory in search of food, territory that might include waters closer to where research equipment and manned submersibles now operate more often than they did decades ago. Scientists cannot fully model any of this yet, because so little of the Hadal Zone has ever been mapped or observed directly with modern equipment. Some estimates suggest less than 5% of the deep ocean floor has ever been seen by a camera or a human eye, which means the vast majority of trench terrain on this planet remains a total blank on our maps. That leaves an enormous amount of space where an undiscovered predator, even a very large one, could simply have never crossed paths with our limited equipment, our short research trips, or our handful of manned dives. This is not just old sonar readings and healed scars from decades ago, either. Unmanned submersibles, exploring deep trenches in more recent years, have occasionally recorded unexplained sonar contacts, large moving shapes that do not match known marine traffic, known whale migration patterns, or known equipment, and that disappear before cameras can get close enough to confirm what they actually are. Most of these contacts are eventually explained by researchers as equipment error, unusual current patterns bending the sonar signal, or known animals moving at strange angles that confuse the readings. But a small number remain unexplained even after review, filed away as inconclusive because there was simply never enough data collected in the moment to prove or disprove what triggered the reading. Researchers studying the Hadal Zone say the honest answer, when pressed, is that we simply do not have enough equipment down there often enough, or for long enough stretches of time, to rule anything out completely. Every mission is short. Every dive is expensive, and every square mile of trench floor takes enormous resources just to glimpse for a few hours. Nothing here proves that a single massive, unknown predator is living somewhere inside the Mariana Trench, and no serious researcher would claim otherwise without real physical evidence in hand. What the evidence does show, when you line it all up together, is a pattern that is hard to simply wave away. A sound too big to explain for years before an answer was finally found. Scars on whales too large to match any confirmed squid species anyone has ever caught. A 16-foot shark species that hid from science for 2 centuries before one finally got tangled in an anchor by accident. Bite wounds still appearing on deep sea sharks pulled up from trench waters with no confirmed source agreed upon by researchers. And an ocean floor that is almost entirely unmapped, sitting beneath currents and temperatures that are changing in ways we are only beginning to understand, through limited, expensive research. Individually, each piece of this puzzle has a possible, reasonable explanation that fits inside what science already knows. Together, they describe an environment large enough, dark enough, and unexplored enough to comfortably hide something we have not identified, yet something that may already be leaving marks on the animals around it without ever once crossing paths with a human being. And maybe that is exactly why the deepest place on Earth keeps pulling researchers back to keep looking, year after year, expedition after expedition, chasing sounds and scars and sonar shapes that refuse to fully explain themselves and why we will. Keep bringing you every new clue the moment it surfaces from the dark. So stay subscribed for what they find next.